I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Their killer has admitted his crimes and was sentenced to life, and now finally the public evidence is being made public. Here's the story. A quiet university town was torn apart by a brutal crime that shocked the nation. 4 young students were found slain in their off-campus home, their lives cut short in a scene of unthinkable violence. For weeks, the community lived in fear as investigators pieced together fragments of surveillance video, DNA, and digital trails. Eventually, suspicion zeroed in on a grad student studying criminology, a man who appeared obsessed with the very subject of murder. Behind a facade of intelligence and normalcy lurked chilling darkness. Evidence placed him near the victim's home, and forensic science tied him to the crime. Prosecutors say he meticulously stalked his victims before carrying out the killings. His guilty plea and admission ended the terror, but opened a new chapter of questions about motive, psychology, and justice. Now, as the public evidence is finally released, some of those questions are being answered. A lot of the reports, and some of them are somewhat redacted, right? There are certain things that are blacked out, that should be blacked out. Names of certain people that were spoken to. So some privacy is retained. But the records are public, and the public is entitled to see them. And we have gotten some of those reports now from this investigation, giving us a better understanding of this killer and what happened in this mass murder. Cody Thomas took a look at some of those reports and found some interesting, I guess, revelations about what was seen and heard the night of the murders.
Sometime in the early morning hours, surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen was awoken and opened her room door, redacted, and heard a male say, "It's okay, Kaylee, I'm here for you," and crying. She then shut her door. A short while later, she opened her door again and saw someone approximately 5 foot 10 inches tall, dressed in all black with a ski mask, standing in the kitchen. She made eye contact with the person and could see they were Caucasian through the cutouts for the eyes. She shut her door again and texted surviving roommate Bethany Funk, whose bedroom is on the first floor. Bethany told her to join her in her room, and Dylan ran down the stairs to Bethany's room, where they fell asleep.
Couple of things there, right? Made eye contact. That's interesting, right? I knew that she had seen the bushy eyebrows, but I didn't know that she had actually made eye contact with the killer. Thank goodness that she did not become another victim. But there was something else in that Cody found, where you have apparently a voice saying, "Kaylee, you know, it'll be okay." How did he know her name? How did he know her name? That brings us to the first question in our investigation. How did he know Kaylee's name? Was Kaylee Goncalves the target? Was she the target in all of this? Here to help answer that question, private investigator Jason Jensen is with us, along with retired police detective Dr. Mike McCutcheon. He's also a crime scene and forensics instructor at Forensic Education. Great to have you both here. Let me start with that question, Jason. After hearing about this, about what Dylan heard, "Kaylee, I'm here for you," do you think that it's possible that Kaylee was the target?
Oh, given this new revelation, it's entirely possible. And the reason why I say that is we have long understood that there was a likely stalker scenario, and it's very common for a stranger stalker to be familiar with their victim, and they feel they know that person while the victim knows nothing of the stalker. So it's very common.
Let's take a look at this as well, more that we uncovered from these newly unsealed documents. And here we have some reporting from the Independent. They spoke with Heather Barnhart, Senior Director of Forensic Research at Cellbrite, and she went through the killer's phone. The killer's digital footprint included a passive log of Wi-Fi networks that his phone sought out. Madison Mogan and Xana Kernodle worked at a local restaurant, the Mad Greek, as servers before they were murdered. One Wi-Fi log caught Heather's attention when she was searching his digital footprint. The network name for the Mad Greek, though nothing concrete tied him to the location at the time of the murders, the Wi-Fi log suggested he had been there before, possibly more than once. There it was, Heather confirmed. His device had passively logged that network. So on the one hand, Dr. Mike McCutcheon, we've got apparently him knowing Kaylee's name. On the other hand, he is going to the Mad Greek where Xana and Maddie worked. What are your thoughts?
This is one of those situations, we don't know exactly what he's thinking, and sometimes it's unfortunately circumstance, the wrong place at the wrong time. And it could be where he saw them working and then followed them. We saw from the surveillance video footage that was released that he circled their residence a few times, whether he was specifically looking for those two kids or not. But it could be where he saw them at a restaurant and he decided they were going to be his victims. He was going to stalk them. It's very possible. With the digital footprint connecting him to that Wi-Fi, I think that's pretty significant. And that, as far as I can see so far from what has been released, to me, that's the only connection to these, to the victims, him and the victims, is the Wi-Fi connection at two of the victims' work. So besides that's the only piece I see that I would indicate that he had some, I don't want to say a relationship, but some aware of where they were and who they were.
Okay, now take a look at this, guys, because this is something else uncovered from these unsealed documents. Kaylee was stalked. In the documents, investigators interview a friend of the female victims, a woman who used to live in the same King Road house. She was told by, again, a redacted name, of a time at Winco when someone followed Goncalves, which is Kaylee, out of the building to her car. There was also another time when all the roommates of 1122 King Road went out for a bit, and when they came back, the back door was open after being previously locked. She heard Goncalves, which is Kaylee, was walking her dog once and had seen someone hiding behind a garbage dumpster. Kaylee felt someone had been watching her. This was about a month prior. Another friend told investigators, before the murders, Kaylee had claimed to have seen a shadow or a shadowy figure watching her from the vegetated area behind the residence, which freaked her out. Kaylee had also told the roommates about a stalker at blank, redacted, in Moscow, Idaho. Jason Jensen, how about this information about Kaylee Goncalves? She felt like someone had been following her, felt like there was a shadowy figure, was freaking out, Jason.
Yes, all this seems to be adding up to the scenario that she felt like she was being stalked. And, that's key there, because as a stalker feels more and more bold, they get closer and closer to their victim until some horrific act where there's a break-in or worse. So this is common buildup of a stalker behavior where it starts out from a distance and they move closer and closer, and the victim usually has that sense that someone's following them.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, the whole group, all the roommates left and came back, and the back door was open after having been locked. A lot of folks are wondering if this killer had, staked out the interior of this. Seemingly, it's an unusual interior, but had staked out the interior of this home.
I will say, without knowing for sure, I can make a couple of assumptions. But with Brian's history of his criminology, for him to not have stalked or not have done an assessment of his victims or done an assessment of his home, I think would be unusual. I think that for someone who was studying criminology at the level that he was studying in criminal justice, I think for him to blindly just stumble into this house and kill 4 people is unlikely. Now, again, I don't know for sure, but that seems unlikely. And if he had planned, whether he saw them at the restaurant or however he locked onto them, if he were this person that they thought was stalking him, I wouldn't find it unusual. That is, this is going to sound strange, but that's normal behavior for a murderer who is stalking their victims, and because they want to make sure their goal is to not be caught. And they want to be successful, and so they are going to take steps to make sure that they're successful, and that is planning out, making sure that they have a way to escape, where they're going to park their car, what's the entry, are doors locked or unlocked, are they going to break a window, are they going to break a door. They preparing for that, just as they would prepare for anything else that they wanted to be successful at. And that requires a game plan. So whether it was or wasn't him, for us to think that he just randomly strolled into this house, I don't think is the case. I think he definitely had some forethought for sure before going to that house that night.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also trust Kaylee's instincts that someone was following her and there was someone looking at her. All right, our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, what new evidence photos have been released?
Nobody understands exactly why, but he was stalking them, he was hunting them.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot.
Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins this week, only on Court TV.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something's happening in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
I feel so bad for those kids. They're kids. They're in college. They're kids. Having to experience that crime scene. So what we found in the reports and what Cody uncovered is a description of the crime scene and sort of the layout of this house inside. Take a listen.
As you enter the residence from the front door, there is a bathroom in front of you, south. There is a bedroom to the right, west. It appeared to be unlived in. To the left, east, was a staircase to the second floor and a small hallway. As you walk east down the hallway, a small mechanical room was to the right, south. The hallway ended in a bedroom redacted. We know this was surviving roommate Bethany Funk's room. As you go up the stairs to the second floor, you enter a small living room area. There was a folding table set up on the west side of the area, partially blocking the entry to the west hallway. There were multiple areas of red liquid on the table that appeared to be blood. As I walked west from the living room, there was a half wall to my right. I could see multiple drops and runs of red liquid along the entire half wall. Across the half wall, north, I saw more red stains on the wall above the first and second floor staircase. The stains and liquid were consistent with cast-off and appeared to be blood. Continuing west down the hallway, there was a bathroom to the left, south, with the hallway ending at a bedroom. On the north wall of the hallway, near the bedroom door, there appeared to be a red-colored transfer mark at approximately my shoulder height. From the living room, looking into the west bedroom, I could see a female, Xana Kernodle, lying near the center of the room. A male, Ethan Chapin, was laying in the bed. Exiting the bedroom and walking east, there wasn't anything visible of interest in the bathroom. Outside the bathroom door, there appeared to be small drops of red liquid near the baseboard, a small smear of a red-colored liquid on the south wall, and a hair stuck to the wall. South out of the living room was a small step down and a bedroom immediately to the left. East, surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen's room. South was a staircase to the third floor and a small storage area under the stairs. To the right, west, was the kitchen. The kitchen counters were cluttered. There were also red-colored drips on the north side cabinets near the sink and a red-colored liquid drop on the floor. The red-colored marks appeared to possibly be blood. As I walked south up the stairs, they switched back to the north. On the center wall banister were red-colored liquid smears. They appeared to be blood smears. At the top of the stairs was a small hallway. Directly to the left, west, was a bedroom, Kaylee Goncalves. On the right side, east of the hallway, it ended with a bathroom. To the south of the bathroom was a small bedroom, Madison Mogan's. On the bed were Kaylee and Maddie.
And along with that description of the interior, there are also some photos that have been released, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation. What new evidence photos have been released? Here to take a look at them with us, private investigator Jason Jensen and retired police detective Dr. Mike McCutcheon. So we're going to walk through some of these photos that we have now, and be interested in what your thoughts are about the significance, what you would look for, and what it tells us. Let's begin first with this image of the stairs. Jason Jensen, I'll begin with you.
Well, it's interesting that what we're looking at here is I can see that there looks like there's cast off along the staircase, some drips like they were describing that Cody was explaining, as well as some empty cans. So, evidence that there might have been a party or something that preceded the night before.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, taking a look at this one. What are your thoughts about the significance here?
Oh, well, it's when you see blood in that fashion, that's blood in motion. That's not a drip mark. So it could be cast off from if somebody's walking and they're moving their hands. It could be coming off of a weapon, but that is blood in motion, though. So when those stains are made, the origin of the blood is somebody who's moving, not being static. And you can see, and this isn't uncommon in crime scenes where there's lots of blood, is, to be frank, they're very messy scenes. There's a lot of blood evidence, and a perpetrator is normally getting blood on their clothing. We see that with the different smears, and them moving their hands around, having it on their clothing. It's going to create these stains, very small stains in some situations, but it's that blood that's moving in motion. This person is moving quickly, which is making the stains. They're not drip stains. They're more blood in motion.
All right, Dr. Mike McCutcheon, I want to take a look at this next one because I'm trying to figure this out.
Sure.
This blue liquid, is there any significance there? Does that tell you anything, this blue liquid on the wall?
Yes, my guess is that is what they would call an amido black. It's a dye stain looking for bloody fingerprints. They use that to enhance blood. It interacts with the blood, and they spray that on where suspected blood may be, either to find blood or what I use it for specifically is to develop fingerprints, to develop bloody fingerprints. It's very fine, and it is a dark, we call it amido black. So my guess is that that's what that stain is. I would be really surprised if that were something that occurred during the crime scene. Just from what it looks like, that is very typical of spraying that type of chemical to develop bloody fingerprints or to locate blood evidence.
All right, let's take a look at the next photo here, Jason Jensen. And this is sort of a wide shot of a desk inside the home. You're at the scene, you're looking at these photos. What are the things that you would be looking for? And is there anything obvious to you from this photo?
Well, one of the things I would be looking for when we're talking a death scene where it's somebody's room, you're looking for things of value that may be missing, that would be common there, some purses, some wallets, cash, jewelry, things of that nature. You want to see if there was evidence that there was a theft, a burglary in progress that might have been interrupted. But absent that, given the fact there is a purse present there, it seems like the motive of the murders were other than like a burglary or a theft.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, looking at this and photos around the house, these are young college kids. There's a bunch of them, a lot of people in and out of the house. How much does that complicate processing the scene?
It complicates it quite a bit because if you were in your house, your prints should be there, your things should be there, and we need to be focused on our victims. And I know what I like to eat and what I like to drink. I know what my family likes to eat and drink. And so if I saw something in this particular photo, one of the beverages where I would say, my roommate would never drink. I have never seen my roommate drink that. Well, as an investigator, I'd say, oh, that could be the suspects because it's not the victims. But when you have, as we just saw on the stairs and on here with lots of different bottles and things like that, it's hard to know what's there fresh, what's there old. Were those from yesterday? Were they from a week ago? It's very difficult. And this isn't typical. This isn't victim shaming or anything like that. This is a typical college house, and it makes it very difficult. One quick note is what I would look for is if there was any voids in a bloodstain pattern to see if the suspect had taken a trinket or taking something after the event, because that blood spatter would be on that particular object, and then they take it. So now there's a void. I can't see quite from the picture without zooming in, but to see if there's a void in the blood spatter to see if the suspect took something with them after he murdered these 4 kids.
And we have one more photo that was unsealed here. We take a look at this. Jason Jensen, we have about 10 seconds left. Thoughts here?
But typically when we're looking at this particular box, those kinds of beverages, just like the doctor was explaining, you can see what might be something that would be related to the victims in this room, and that would be one of the things you would clarify, given the fact that there's a storage box for White Claw. Any White Claws you would probably eliminate in the room as being the suspect's contribution.
Jason Jensen, Dr. Mike McCutcheon, great to have your expertise and having you both here. Thank you so much. Up next, did the killer's behavior at Washington State University raise any red flags? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students. It was a mass murder by a man who was obsessed with murder and serial killers, a grad student studying criminology. Here's the story. It was a crime that shattered the peace of a small college town. In the dead of night, 4 bright University of Idaho students were brutally murdered inside their off-campus home, a place once filled with laughter and promise. The crime scene was described as chilling, a house of horror that left even seasoned investigators shaken. For weeks, the community lived in fear, wondering if the killer would strike again. Clues emerged slowly. DNA on a knife sheath, cell phone pings, and the eerie image of a white car captured on surveillance near the home. Piece by piece, detectives built their case, revealing what they say was a carefully planned and merciless attack. The victims, young lives brimming with potential, were stolen in an instant, and the town of Moscow has never been the same. Now, after the conviction of the killer, we are learning more about what happened as the public records and public evidence is finally being released. And we're taking a look at some of that newly released and unsealed evidence in the case. Now, this killer was studying criminology. This killer worked at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, just over the state border. Wasn't far from Moscow, almost like neighboring college towns out west. And he was working there, so he was, he was a grad student, but he was teaching classes. So he was interacting, and other professors got to know him a little bit from his time there. And it seems he made quite an impression early on. Take a listen to this part that Cody found in the reports, talking about observations from one of the professors at Washington State University.
One day, a female grad student came running into her office, went and checked on her, and the student said that she had just left class because of an interaction with Kohberger. Kohberger had said something very sexist, and the student called him out for mansplaining. Kohberger stood his ground and kept speaking in a way that made the student feel she needed to stand up and leave the room. She was asked by staff to check in on name redacted because Kohberger was harassing her. Kohberger would go into an office where several female grad students worked and physically block the door. Once in a while, she would hear one of the female grad students say, "I really need to get out of here." And she would intercede by going into the office and allowing the female student to leave. Kohberger had strong feelings that regular burglars had nothing to do with sexually motivated burglars. She and her colleagues had a faculty meeting right before the Christmas break in which they discussed each one of their students. Kohberger took up most of the time in this meeting because he was highly problematic. She told her colleagues, "He is smart enough that in 4 years we will have to give him a PhD, and mark my word, I work with predators. If we give him a PhD, that's the guy that in many years, when he is a professor, we will hear is harassing, stalking, and sexually abusing his students at wherever university." Because there was a performance issue in terms of his TA, teaching assistant duties, she and a couple of her other faculty members made the recommendation to cut his funding and get him out of the program. She felt like he was stalking people.
Wow. Okay, let's get to the next question in our investigation, and it's about his time at Washington State University. Did his behavior at WSU raise any red flags? It did, it seemed, with that professor. Here to help answer that question, private investigator Lauren Vellucci and clinical and forensic psychologist Dr. John Paul Garrison, also a body language expert. You know him, Dr. G is here. Thank you both for being here. To me, that is just jaw-dropping, Lauren, the observations from this professor that, like, basically predicting the future for this guy.
Yeah, and it was terrible because she was noticing all this, and so were his classmates and his other teammates that he was working with in this teacher's assistant program. And they would do what they could, but they said that basically he was misogynistic, homophobic. He would literally insult everyone, and he had to dominate every single conversation. I just think that after all of these little nuggets that are coming out, it makes Olivia Goncalves's victim impact statement so much more powerful, because she was speaking to all of his grandiosity that we're seeing here that everyone picked up on. But the problem is that it wasn't serious enough to get the law involved. And so that's why I'm a big proponent on your gut. We have a gut feeling. Sometimes we can't pinpoint it, what's wrong, what's off about someone, but we should always listen to that gut feeling, because this professor and a lot of these students knew that something was very wrong.
Absolutely, more than a dozen complaints. Take a look at this. A professor at Washington State University, he was aggressive towards women, made them feel uncomfortable. The faculty discussed how they could intervene. Dr. G, your thoughts about these observations of the killer?
Well, it's tragic that they couldn't intervene, or they felt that they couldn't intervene. I know in psychology programs, they we gatekeep pretty well. If somebody's strange or is doing something like this, they're not going to graduate. They'll be kicked out of the program. But you have to have leverage like that over somebody. Otherwise, they'll keep these behaviors up. Clearly, he was escalating, and ideally being able to kick him out of a program or put some sort of limits there would have maybe helped prevent some of that escalation.
Some more from these complaints. Another student at Washington State University, name redacted, further described that the killer would stare at people in an intimidating way. Again, name redacted, told the killer that the way he was speaking was condescending, that he speaks that way to women, made her feel uncomfortable. Several of the students supported this person in her rebuke of the killer. The killer responded by saying, "I care how you feel, but you were wrong." The killer would also come into her office and stand in the doorway, would not take any cues that she didn't want to talk to him. Dr. G, what are your thoughts about that? I care how you feel, but you are wrong.
It's amazingly manipulative, which is exactly what you would expect with somebody like him. Low in empathy, high in manipulation. He knows just enough about what to say. He has just enough empathy to manipulate people, but no more than that. And that's what we see with people that are psychopaths.
Another student at Washington State University. Before talking with, again, name redacted, she emailed the killer concerning her grade. She stated his comment was, quote, "Stinks for you. You didn't know what you were doing." She felt at times that the killer would intentionally leave the class at the same time and follow her out to her car. I trust that she was probably correct in that observation, Lauren.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was something that was echoed by everyone, really. He would talk down to women. He would call them broken. I don't know if it's the same student that completely changed her routine and asked professors and other students to drive her so that she didn't have to walk alone or take the bus alone at night because of him and him following her out to the car and other, behaviors like physically blocking her from leaving the class when it was over and her wanting to go. And multiple people have stated this. I mean, it's really, really creepy stuff.
Dr. G, is there any way to tell the difference between, and where that line is between someone who is just a jerk versus someone who is potentially dangerous, that, could attack you, sexually assault you, or like in this case, end up being a mass murderer who wanted to be a serial killer?
Unfortunately, it's all too often that we don't get to measure these things and talk to these people until after the fact, until after they've started doing something. But the truth is that for people that are socially awkward, they typically want to get along with people. They just don't have the skills. For people that are psychopaths, they can look similar, but they want control. So you start to get a sense this person wants control. They're being manipulative. They're trying to be hurtful. They're engaging in stalking behaviors. They're not being awkward and walking out and wanting to talk to somebody. They're stalking. They're trying to make somebody feel intimidated. So how you feel around somebody, really trusting your gut to go, this person is not just awkward. They're wanting to harm me. They enjoy the idea that I'm suffering right now.
And Dr. G, how does the autism play into this? Because our understanding is that the killer was somewhere on the spectrum.
So I hear. I don't know how officially true that is, because psychopathy and autism superficially can look kind of similar because they can both have minimal emotional expression. They can be kind of blank. There's a lot of overlap between the two. If he in fact did have autism on top of many of the other issues that he has, then it is going to increase his ability to manipulate well. He's going to be awkward. People are going to see his manipulations and just feel creeped out by him. So there could be a little bit of overlap, but I'm not even convinced that he's very on the autism spectrum.
All right, guests are staying with us. Still to come. Did the killer's behavior off campus raise any red flags?
As to count 2, murder in the first degree as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Goncalves, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markel.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot.
Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins this week, only on Court TV.
During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss.
Powerful and very true statement by Judge Hippler at the sentencing of the killer. So when the killer moved, he went from Pennsylvania out to Washington State, you know, across the country, went out to, what was it, Ted Bundy country, right? And when he first got out there, I think this was right around the beginning of when he got out there, stayed in a hotel. And just for a couple of days, yet made quite an impression on folks at that hotel. Cody Thomas, going through the reports, found it. Take a listen.
Kohberger checked in on June 30th, 2022 at approximately 4:52 p.m. Kohberger later came down to the front desk and asked her to make a set of key cards for his room and leave them for someone named Name Redacted. The following morning, she went upstairs to see if Kohberger was going to check out at the appointed noon checkout time. As she approached his room to contact him, he was standing in the doorway leaving. As they walked down to the front desk, they talked about sheaths and collecting knives. Once at the front desk, they talked about self-defense weapons and their knife collections. The key cards for Name Redacted were still at the front desk when he was checking out. Another female worker at the hotel told investigators, Name Redacted told her manager that she had double-charged Kohberger, and he became really upset. And then he became nice and kept coming downstairs, flirting with her.
Interesting, right? So in these reports, we found out a lot about people coming forward and providing information about the killer. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation, which is, did his behavior off campus raise any red flags, the things he was doing when he left Washington State University? Still with us, our guests, private investigator Lauren Vellucci, and clinical and forensic psychologist Dr. John Paul Garrison, Dr. G. I want to put this up here. This is from the University of Washington student. The killer had asked Name Redacted if she was single. She discussed her relationship with her partner. He asked about other friends of hers and if she was interested in getting together outside of school. She said she was not interested. She said she had told him she had been blanked, right? And he stated he did not date broken women. The redaction, I believe, probably refers to some form of being a victim. Dr. G, what are your thoughts about him seeing a woman who's been a victim as a broken woman and having some sort of rule that he has that he doesn't date who he considers a broken woman?
It shows that he's sadistic. It goes to the idea that he has not just low empathy, but no empathy. This is someone who truly does not understand human relationships in any real measurable way. So, of course, if somebody has been hurt, he's going to see them. He's going to use that against him. He's going to use that as a bludgeon to make them feel awful. So regardless of whether or not he actually sees them as broken, he may just say that to enjoy watching someone hurt, because that's the kind of person he is.
Yeah, Lauren Vellucci, it's amazing that this guy has such a high opinion of himself and is so picky about who is good enough to be with him.
Yeah, it's disgusting, in fact. He was so full of himself that he had the confidence to go up to 2 women in bathing suits at this pool party that he was invited to. And he got a pity invite because his father went up to a neighbor of his that he had just moved in and basically said, I want you to meet my son because he has a hard time making friends. So when he went to that pool party, he went up to these 2 women and got their phone numbers. I know, attractive, smart men who don't have that confidence. And then you have this creature thinking that he is so good and he has this overbonding, confidence that he'll go up and have no issue approaching 2 women. It's really, it just shows how much he thinks of himself, his grandiosity, and how narcissistic he is.
Here's something else from another student who's at a pool party that Lauren is mentioning here. They noticed the killer trying to socialize, but not doing a good job of it. They were uncomfortable and a little bit weirded out by him and said his behavior seemed erratic. Dr. G, imagine this guy coming into town and hanging out at the pool party and trying to get to know folks. Like, oof.
It's tough because I think we've all been around awkward people that make us feel uncomfortable, but the way he does it is so extreme. When you think of everything of human behavior being on sort of a bell-shaped curve, like the vast majority of us are in the middle, and there's some outliers. He's way, way out there. And so I think it sounds like pretty much everybody identified him as someone who there was something strange about him beyond just being awkward.
Another woman at the pool party, the killer approached her and started talking with her about taking a personality test for introverted and extroverted personalities. She found the killer's conversation about personalities to be a weird topic to discuss at a party and became bored of the conversation. They exchanged phone numbers so he could text her a link to take a survey. She never saw him again after the party. He did text her sometime later asking if she had taken the survey. She never did respond, and shortly after changed her cell number and purchased a new phone. Dr. G, this woman's, radar for danger, I think, was activated by this guy. She knew that this guy was trouble.
Absolutely. And he also is somebody who is incredibly arrogant. He likes to show off how smart he was, which is probably why he wanted her to take that personality assessment or whatever it was so that he could talk about his knowledge about it, maybe somehow make him feel like he got leverage over her because he would probably find some way to try to make her feel bad about whatever her results were. That's how predators like him operate. So people need to trust their gut. There's just sometimes we just know when somebody is off, and it's beyond just making us uncomfortable. And I'm glad that some people were able to do that. It's so tragic and unfortunate how far he got and how far he was able to escalate all of this.
Yeah. Lauren, we have about 20 seconds left, but could you imagine someone coming up to you at a party? Hey, you want to take a survey?
Oh my gosh. This guy was just, they found out that he had 18 contacts in his phone. Can you imagine being a 30-year-old man and only having 18 contacts? And those were family included. So this guy couldn't keep friendships or start them.
Great to have both of you with us tonight. Lauren Vellucci, Dr. G, Dr. John Paul Garrison, thank you so much. Great to see you. All those red flags were identified in real time. The question is, how would anyone ever suspect that he would actually do what he did? Right? You see the red flags, but no one's going to think that he's going to actually murder 4 people. Now, I know all of us know someone who's awkward, maybe strange, but think about it. Would you ever suspect that that person that you think is strange in your life would be a serial killer? And even if you did, would you say anything to anyone? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.